the recording? Yes, thank you. I'll make the recording available after posted in the MiALA website. And for anybody that can't be here, and send out a notice with the link. So good morning. I did a little bit of research this morning with the knowledge bases to see if there was something out there that I wasn't aware of, and I did come up with one, but it's an open access that I hadn't heard before. Basically, there seems to be 4 players with the knowledge bases, and so we are currently using the EDS with EBSCO and OCLC. We're doing a lot of duplication of effort, and not sure that's the most efficient, but that's what we're working with currently. So I'd be curious to hear what everybody else is using. Are you guys using knowledge bases?
I don't have a good understanding of what knowledge base is exactly, but we have Summon, and that's sort of our discovery product that we use.
Okay. Well, I can explain, if this is any help, I can go through what we do. And like I said, it's probably not the most efficient way to do this, but we want to use OCLC MARC records. And in order to do that, we use their WMS system, and that's the World Share Management. So we go in and we download the records from there and then upload the holdings into our catalog. But we also keep the EBSCO EDS system running concurrently with that, so that those records also, so we can use Encore. And we've also been I don't know, I wouldn't say beta testing, but helping Innovative with their new Innovative Central, which they're still working on, trying to get up and running. So far, it hasn't worked for us very well, and part of the problem is that they are using Sky River MARC records, and we don't want to use the Sky River. So that's kind of a problem for us. Beth, you are using the Sierra knowledge base? Oh, okay. Where I didn't, okay, the Primo wasn't in the article that I read was a Marshall breeding article, and they didn't mention Primo. Is that new? Okay. So Deja's saying that the SFX is the link resolver, and then Primo has the metadata. Is that an automated process, Deja? Does it load and update the holdings, or is it something that you have to do?
This may be easier just to talk through.
Thank you.
It's okay. I just never know when to take over. And I don't know if it might be easier if I just shared the screen, but the back
Okay.
end of Primo has, and this is one of my beefs with Ex-Libris, which I've been yelling at them for a few years. It's organized very differently than the way SFX is organized. And I don't know why, because one's by vendor and one's by like package. So you go in and you actually turn on what we call like the metadata within the Primo knowledge base, and then in theory, SFX has your holdings information, and inside your discovery layer, it should only display things you have access to. That's not always the case. Sometimes, for example, we have Eric right now, and Eric sends us info that includes index info and also full text, but they're allegedly a full text knowledge base database. We're having lots of issues where we click down into it and that's like, no, you can't actually get in that article. So within Primo, it is like a separate knowledge base backend. I assume when we're within Alma and Primo VE, it'll all be hooked in with the rest of Alma, but we're strange.
So how much work does that take for you? Is that something that you spend a lot of time on?
Not really, because I get monthly updates of what packages get added and things. We're smaller, and I feel slightly less complicated than a lot of places. So a lot of it with the Primo side is mostly just turning on things that we've either bought, or I turn on a lot of the open access stuff until we have problems with holdings issues in SFX. So I try to make it match SFX, but again, it's kind of tricky because they're organized very differently. So I'm honestly that turns on everything that's open access as long as it's majority in English. It's kind of nice we don't have a lot of internationals up here. Yeah, so it's not a ton of overhead. But we don't have an ERM at the moment either. That's the other reason we're going to Alma.
Okay. All right. Is anybody else using WMS?
Yeah, we are at CMU.
Does that work pretty well for you?
Yeah, for certain things. We use it primarily for ebook MARC record loads rather than using the community zone records in Alma.
Okay.
I'm from CMU. I logged in late. Sorry about that.
No problem. Do you, the other thing that that we don't like to do is use the MARC records from all the varying vendors. Does that, it just seems unorganized to us, I guess, or not consistent, inconsistent. Do you guys use the vendor records, or do you try and keep them all from one spot, a Sky River or OCLC?
That's kind of why we've been trying to use WMS so that they're all, the majority of what we load is OCLC records.
But you don't use it for your journals?
No, we just use the community zone for journals because journal bib records don't really have a lot of description to them. So we just use what they give us in the community zone.
What's community zone?
In Alma.
Oh, okay.
The Alma community zone. But we used SFX records before that.
So at Grand Valley, we get our journal records from Serial Solutions.
Okay.
And then for ebooks, we generally get them from the vendors. And we just have a person whose job is to do that whenever new records are out.
All right. We kind of split it up. I do the journals, and Maureen McCurry, our other tech services librarian, does the ebooks and like audio files and that kind of thing. It takes up a lot of my time. So I'm looking forward to the possibility of more automated process.
So just kind of I saw Deja put something about how she kind of duplicates effort by loading records, I'm assuming, into her catalog as well as turning them on in the knowledge base, which then makes them show up in the discovery record.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong. But we do that too, but we're still doing that. I would say I was a person who said, that's dumb, let's not load them into the catalog. They're in the discovery layer. That's where everyone goes. And then we actually looked into it, and we are getting a lot of our ebook usage is coming from our catalog. So it's definitely worth us to duplicate the effort of getting them to show up in the discovery layer and in our catalog.
And just to speak to our process, the reason I've been doing it is because we're also running Encore separately, as well as Classic Catalog for III. I am one of those people who also would like to dump them and run them all through the link resolver. So I'm kind of curious if your catalog was a separate scope or a separate interface, because as we move into ALMA, I have some librarians that do instruction who are very like, I only want to go in the catalog scope because it's a lot easier to use. So I've been like, we have a catalog scope inside Primo, and we have like a featured results bar that'll bring up like the ebooks and anything that's loaded into the catalog portion. But I'm not sure if that's helpful to anyone else. It's kind of good to hear that might be, because I do get a lot of flack for the redundancy. Like, how many GovDoc records do we need? And I'm like, we're a federal depository. Sorry.
All of them. No. Yeah. So we're running innovative. So it's Sierra's Classic Webpack or whatever, and then Summon. So they are separate, and they're different. And Summon's great, still terrible for known item searches, especially if they're short titles. Many librarians just like the way the catalog searches, so they use that a lot more, I think, than Summon when they do instruction.
CMU does have a library catalog scope in Primo.
What do you have in that library catalog scope? We've been talking about that at Hope too.
Anything that's been moved to the institution zone in ALMA.
So anything that you own or license?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. The SFX, I'm not familiar with that. Can somebody explain what that is?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, okay. You might have more experience with it than I do. I'm still trying to figure out how to use the back end of it. As Beth pointed out, SFX is a link resolver. It's basically where we keep all of our holdings information for our journals. And when you click through, it presents whether or not we have it in full text, electronic, whether or not you have to ILL it. I have a couple other features for trouble reports and Google Scholar searching. But it's basically the intermediary between, what the database thinks you have and how to get to it.
Okay. And that's ProQuest?
That is more Ex Libris ProQuest, yes.
Okay. So it's the same thing as the Find Full Text or Full Text Finder?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, to find it out in the public web, yeah.
Got it. All right. I just hadn't heard of that.
It's okay. We try not to use too much jargon. Get jargony real fast.
Well, yeah, and they all call the same thing something different, but all right. Well, it sounds like we're about split with some of us duplicating effort for the catalog and then some of us are not. I am one of those that I would much rather search in the catalog. I don't care for Encore. It's just too much. Is anybody, I know, Deja, you guys are getting ready to switch over. Is anybody else switching to a different database or knowledge base?
Hope is also in the process of migrating to Alma Primo.
What were you guys with before?
We're currently with Sierra and Summon.
Okay. Do those work together?
They do, in that we have to manually load our data from Sierra to Summon, and we have to manually download our data from Serial Solutions into Sierra. So technically they work together.
Does that take a lot of your time?
Well, there are three of us who work on different aspects of it, and it takes a lot of our time. So I'm very excited about moving to Alma.
Okay.
We don't miss that part at CMU. We migrated to Alma last July.
Were you guys part of the group that did the bid, the group bid?
No.
Oh, okay.
We went on our own and bid starting a couple of years ago, and then we went live last July, June 30th.
How did that go?
It's going okay. When I hear you talking about having to upload to the discovery layer, we definitely don't miss that. The majority of the WMS record loads are automated. So we just have to monitor to make sure they're still working. But it took us some time to get those all set up.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, there's many things that we don't do anymore that you kind of forget about. And I hear you guys talking about that just reminds me that part of it's pretty smooth now.
It just seems in general a lot of people are switching away from Sierra or Millennium, either one, to Alma. Beth was asking if anybody else was following the Folio project, and we have been. I've sat in on a couple of webinars about it. It looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, Grand Valley's definitely been keeping an eye on the Folio progress. We had EBS go out a while ago. I can't remember when, and they kind of did an overview of it, and then it's something we'll be keeping an eye on moving forward. So, yeah.
Yeah, we did the same thing. They walked us through it. It looks promising. We'll see. Out of curiosity, how often do you guys look to do coverage loads?
We were doing them every month.
For everything?
For journals.
Okay. Wow.
Sorry. We do journal loads. We get records from Serial Solutions monthly for our journals, and then depending on the ebook vendor, we do it however often we can get new records. So, and that can be weekly up to once a year, depending on the vendor.
I'm lucky if I get through mine twice a year. I'm sitting here cringing. Ugh.
What, where do you get your records from?
We go to OCLC and download the file for, you know, whatever it might be, Taylor and Francis. And first we have to make sure that what they have, what we've got selected there, matches what we actually have from Taylor and Francis. And then sometimes we have to redo dates or volumes and that kind of thing. And then we download that, then we upload it into the catalog. And
Do you have a link resolver?
Yeah. Yeah, we do the find full text.
From EBSCO?
Yeah.
Okay. So they don't provide you MARC records?
Well, they would, but we've chosen to use OCLC records. So it's obviously adding a lot of extra work at this point.
And a lot of, we'll just say inaccuracies, probably. If you only load twice a year.
Well, right. That we,
yeah.
Because
all the titles that move in and out.
Yeah. Right after the beginning of the year, January is always, I start to do all the upgrades then, and but it just takes forever. And then I open my email and I have to go down all those rabbit holes. So
yeah,
it takes a lot of time. Yeah, it's not the most efficient way to do things. I
have to say it's the best thing we ever did, going away from one by one records to using MARC records from our link resolver. We didn't really have a choice, though. We were losing staff, so.
Oh, sure.
Said, okay, then this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
It allows us to spend more time on the coverage rather than the cataloging part of it. So.
And you don't have problems with the inaccurate data or problems with students finding things that you don't have?
No. We've found that not many people search by journal title anyway. I'm not saying we don't have problems with links occasionally from the knowledge base, but it's all good. In fact, it's probably less mistakes than there used to be. Because we can spend more time on the activation, deactivation, and the coverage data.
Mm-hmm. How much time do you feel like you spend weekly dealing with that?
We might get 5 to 10 problems reported, but the most of the time it's for open access journals that we've activated that no longer the link doesn't work. So it's more linking issues than titles missing or coverage kind of issues.
Mm-hmm. Deja, what you said, that's how you got SFX automated? What do you mean?
Oh, that was just in response to losing staff. In our case, it was temporary, but when our automation librarian retired, he divvied up his workload sort of however he felt who was competent at what. And when our sysadmin ended up having a remission for about, I I think he's been out 9 months or so now. He was doing a lot of our SFX processes every week by hand, and my coworkers are SFX admins. Like, I wanted to automate them for years, so let's just automate them because he's not here. So we ended up automating, for example, our weekly extract and some other things. She knows more of the details of that, but that's how I ended up getting it automated. And I keep, trying not to be the gloom and doom lady, but I'm like, we need to cross train. We're a small house, and somebody could have another medical issue or disappear into the woods. And it would be good if we kind of knew how to troubleshoot in more detail what other people are primarily responsible for. But downside being a small house is you don't always have a lot of time to do that.
Yeah. Thanks, Saxony. Okay, I'm just looking back in the chat. We used to use Serial Solutions, but that was before I started in this position, so I'm not really familiar with how it works. But is that's all automated? Is that right?
Which part is automated?
The Serial Solutions, is that all automated?
So we have to go in and turn on what we have and what we don't have, or turn off what we don't have. We pay for monthly mark records from them, and we have to load those manually into our catalog. Is that what you're asking? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's not all automated.
Oh, no. I mean, what shows up in Summon is automated from what we get from Serial. What's in the knowledge base when we turn it on shows up automatically in the discovery layer. But if we want anything from our catalog, that's manual. And if we want to put anything from Serial Solutions into the catalog, that's manual.
And you have to pay for those records.
And we are paying for those records. I don't know. I don't know how much we're paying because we're getting a bunch of other stuff from them. So the records might be really cheap, but that's probably because of all the stuff we're paying them for already. So
right.
So it's air quote free, maybe.
Well, and what we are able to just, when we do our coverage load from Serial Solutions into Sierra, instead of, they're not great records, but we are able to just have Sierra create a brief record on the fly with really just a journal title and an ISSN. But for the very limited use that those records get in the catalog, I think that's really all that's necessary. And that's free.
So the brief records are free, and Patrick, are your records full records?
Yeah, I think we're getting more than brief records. Yeah.
Okay. And do you know what the source is of the records?
I don't actually. No, I have no idea. I'm someone who is just starting to manage this kind of stuff. So
yeah,
that is not a question I've asked yet. It just comes magically monthly,
Magic.
In Alma, the community zone journal records are Concert bib records.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the source for those.
And those are full records?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're not always full, but many are.
All right. So you're, I guess I'm wondering, do your catalogers ever have anything to say about the records that are coming in? Or do they just not pay attention to that?
We don't have any.
You don't have a cataloger?
We have a part-time cataloger that catalogs thesis and dissertations, but that's it.
Wow.
So we only have one cataloger, and the cataloger's fine with with the quality. I mean, they're not, for both journal and book records, they're not the best, or ebook records are not the best. We have a few librarians who are like, hey, you need to make the subject headings in these records better. And I'm like, I don't have time for one person to spend, fixing 10,000 subject headings for you. So no.
Yeah.
So really, for us, it's more of a communication of scale issue. Like, you can have access to all these titles because we have ebooks, but the records aren't going to be as good because we can't manage that many titles.
Yeah.
The cataloger's fine with it. It's more the librarians doing instruction who don't like the way the results come up or are mad when a book doesn't show up when they do a search, that kind of stuff.
Right. Huh. You guys are giving me a lot to think about. Yeah.
Yes to everything Deja just typed. Like, yes.
And ebook records especially are notoriously awful. Absolutely awful.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I get in the same sort of roundabout circle when I try to explain authority control. Because I'm like, well, why are these coming up with double dashes and not the correct, parsing out of your subject headings? And I'm like, if we could even do name authority control and pay for that, this would make it a lot better. And that's like, you want $2,500 to do authority control? I'm like, it would make stuff work. And then, you get these comments, and I'm like, I load hundreds to thousands of records a week. I can't sit and pick through all of them. I mean, I feel bad enough moving the GMDs around. I should just get rid of the GMD and just come to terms with that. But, we haven't come to terms with removing the electronic resource GMD, so my life is fun. Yes, now it's at the end of the title because I can't get the software to stick it where it should go.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's, I would say most of our librarians who do instruction are fine with the quality. I mean, they understand why it is the way it is. The ones who don't, I try to pitch it as it's not going to get better, but maybe this is an opportunity where you can talk to students about why metadata is important, or, which, doesn't always go over well, but some of them are like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, maybe we can use this as a way to teach about something. So.
Or talk to your subject vendors, because I'm always like, if you go to conferences and more than one of us complains, for example, Sage not allowing us to have subject collection access, or at least as far as I can tell, if anyone else has worked that out, that would be great. But I'm like, with ours tends to be the allied health folks, so it's like, well, if you go to your specialty conferences, they might listen to you more than me going, I know your metadata is weird. Can you please, make it work?
Oh.
The other really big peeve I have about knowledge bases for journals is that they don't handle title changes the way they should. And I understand that journal vendors are putting content from a former title and a current title on the same web page, and that's fine. And I think a link resolver can handle that. But if I have a user with a citation and they're typing in the older journal title, they're not going to find it because the knowledge base puts everything under the current title. So that's been a real frustration for me.
How are you fixing that in any way?
When I run into it, I'm complaining to the knowledge base folks and having them fix it, but that's title by title. And, I think it's a much bigger issue. So I think it's something we have to complain to the vendors about.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This is a little bit off topic, but I was following on I think it's the serials list about Taylor and Francis having cut off 1997 access. Have you guys been having problems with that?
No, but now I'm going to write it down.
Me too.
Yeah.
I need to go back and check because the last I heard, Taylor and Francis apologized and they were going to reinstate access, and now it seems like they haven't. So I need to go back and double check.
Right.
Why did they turn it off?
Um, they switched, I forget exactly what it was that they did. They changed the way they were setting up their packages, and for those that buy the titles individually, they just, for whatever reason, quit giving access to 1997. Maybe somebody else knows a little bit more about the background.
Well, they had sold the titles with a 20-year rolling back file. And yeah, so, and then they just, without really talking to anyone, without getting any feedback from librarians, they just changed what they were doing. And there was a pretty big backlash. So I thought they had gone back and added it back, but I need to go check.
Yeah, I had heard they were going to. Last I knew, they hadn't. I think that was the end of last week was the last time I looked at it, but yeah. Okay, sorry, that was off topic. Those were all that I had on the knowledge bases. I've certainly got a lot to think about from this, and I appreciate everybody's input. Anybody else have questions about knowledge bases or anything else while we're all together here? Okay. Well, I have one other question. I brought this up earlier, and this is really off topic, but does any of you purchase microfiche anymore from NA Publishing?
I think we have 2 subscriptions still.
Have you had any problems with them?
It does seem pretty slow, delayed.
Yeah. Yeah, they owe us quite a bit of money, and we're not getting it, nor are we getting our subscriptions filled. So I just wondered if anybody else was having trouble. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think we were a little slow to get out of this, and I'm kicking myself now. Okay, well, if nobody else has questions or comments about the knowledge bases, again, thanks everybody. I have, like I said, a lot to think about. And I can't remember what our next topic is, but I'll send out the next topic with the link for this if you want to share this with anybody. It has been recorded, and as soon as we get it together, it'll be also on the MiALA website, but I'll send everybody the link as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yep. Have a good day.